Hello and welcome to Brite Bites, bite-sized conversations with the people shaping the insurance and employee benefits world, where we talk with friends about benefits. I'm your host, Spencer, and on the show, we'll skip the 2-hour deep dives and get straight to it. One serious question, one question from the field, and one chance to share real insights and have a little bit of fun with it. Whether you are a broker, an HR leader on the carrier side of the business, or someone who's just a little bit benefit curious, you are in the right place. I'm thrilled for our conversation today. Today's guest is Nick Carlson, Director of Partner Integrations with ThreeFlow. Nick, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Sensor. Super excited to be here and go through this conversation, and real excited also just for the partnership we've had with the Bright team. So super
Love it.
excited today.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited for the conversation today. As advertised, this is short and sweet, so we're going to jump straight into it. First question is about the integration unlock. Brokers are drowning in systems that don't talk to each other. From where you sit, watching hundreds of integrations, what does it actually cost a broker in real dollars and real relationships to have a fragmented tech stack?
Yeah, super great question here to get us started, Spencer. So I think the one of the amazing things, I mean, intuitively we know that like brokers have this like crazy tech stack with systems that are all over the place. But when you actually sit down and like talk with them, or they show the kinds of things that they have to do on a daily basis, like it's really mind blowing. Like it's like we really need to, kind of rebase ourselves on that actual experience that those individual brokers are having, because they go through it and they talk about things like, oh, I have policy documents in this shared drive, and I go into this AMS system, and then I have to go into like multiple carrier portals to do these things. And then I'm keeping track of stuff in spreadsheets and all of this. And it's like, it's really just mind blowing to sit down and think through and see all of those individual things that they're doing. So when those individual pieces of technology and workflow steps like aren't talking, like it's got to be really maddening to go through and do all of that. So we've done some studies, and we've seen some things like, call it like 10 hours per RFP. And that's the space that we sit in the benefit placement space about creating RFPs and getting quotes from carriers, is that it's something like 10 plus hours to go in and actually like create these individual RFPs and get those out to the carriers. And then you have to manage all those responses and do all those tasks that have to be done later on in the life cycle journey also. So you can just add up all of those dollars and just see that like, running cash register of time that's being burned there with all of that, and preventing you from actually doing the actual work of like working with your clients and your customers and all of those kind of things. So I think that's the real intuitive, easy place to start. You're going to be slowed down by getting out more RFPs as a result of that, and all of those other pieces that come in line with, we've seen this kind of growth of outsourcing partners that'll come in also that actually have like a better tech stack. And there's just like millions of dollars that just go out the door just because they want to pass it on to someone that can just do this easier for them and all of that. So I think the other side of the equation that you're talking about when it comes to the relationship cost, this is where I feel like kind of the growing dynamic of AI in our world really comes into play. One of my daughter's favorite words right now is cringe. And like, that's the first word that comes into my mind when I'm using these new AI tools that are changing every single day and automating things and creating new things for us that really blow our mind, or automatically go and accomplish some task. And then someone like comes to me with like some form that I have to like manually fill out or like key in something, and it's just like, that is so cringe to sit there and do that when we have all these amazing tools that are just accomplishing everything for us on an automated basis. And so I can only imagine what that's like for a broker to then go to like their employer client and ask them to like fill out something or rekey something in for like the fourth or fifth time just to go and accomplish something in their workflow. So you have to imagine that that's going to have a real relationship cost if someone else can present you the actual opportunity to not do those kind of things.
Time is money, isn't it? And I love the that maybe Gen Alpha, I guess, term cringe. We are so cooked, aren't we?
Yeah.
Uh, I love that, and I've actually heard recently from one of our general agency partners, that time that you talked about, maybe 10 hours. That's maybe a pretty conservative estimate. It could be a little bit more
Sure.
time. And the
Sure.
other piece about the other impact we have is it's not just one place that that 10 hours of work exists. When we have a fragmented and disconnected tech stack, like that 10 hours happens in the RFP process, that 10 hours happens in building benefit guides, that 10 plus hours happens when you're standing up the Ben admin. And if none of those systems are talking to each other, that duplicative work exists in multiple different places. And you're, let alone time, you're also increasing the possibility and the probability of human error and
Yeah,
accuracy issues. So
no
a lot
kidding.
of lot of impacts across all of the different areas in that cycle, from policy to communication to the employee. We're talking about the broker side, but there's obviously going to be impacts on the carrier side as well here. So pivoting to the next question, let's talk a little bit about the carrier side, because I know you sit right at the intersection between these two. So you're spending a lot of your time in your days connecting carriers and brokers through this technology. What's something carriers desperately want from their broker partners that the brokers have no idea, or maybe they're missing the mark and that they're not delivering it in the way that the carriers are hoping for?
Yeah, so this is where there's maybe a couple things that popped into my mind right away. One is on the implementation or installation phase of the policy life cycle or the life cycle journey that's occurring with policies. And this is where what we'll hear from carriers is that oftentimes the quote that's sold is not the actual one that ends up getting installed or that policy that's getting created within the carrier's admin systems. And this raises up a lot of underlying issues or root causes for why that's happening, but then ultimately the effect of what that'll create on the output when you're going through that. So, like, I was recently at LIMRA's enrollment conference last month, and it was amazing at an enrollment conference how much of the conversations we were having with carriers revolved around the implementation challenges of getting things through their systems and then getting them to the enrollment systems to be able to be set up for correct and accurate enrollment even from the very beginning. So this is where carriers really want to drive home the point to brokers of like making changes to policies after that sole decision has been made is going to end up causing all kinds of like manual rework. It's going to cause delays on things. It's going to cause additional problems to just be able to like speed things up and get things ready before enrollment even gets started. So a lot of those complaints are blown down to the fact of like, hey, we're waiting for you. No, we're waiting for you. And a lot of it is because things have changed or they've made changes or they can't get things straight, or even like the basic things like a carrier was telling us that they needed the broker to tell them the policy number for the policy that was getting renewed. So that way they could like tie it with their internal systems and move on to those next steps that were happening. So it seems like it's like crazy things like that, but there's a lot of things that have got to be kept straight. And a lot of those checklist items have to be done in that implementation / installation phase to keep going, that I think both sides of the equation aren't really fully aware of all that's needed. So obviously, when you're in more of an automated, integrated state, there's a lot of those things that just naturally kind of boil away. The second thing that comes in my mind is we'll hear often from carriers about how desperate they are to get real honest feedback from their broker partners in terms of either how they operate their products, their pricing, anything about their technology systems, anything like that. And this is where Flow can really help out with the data insights that we have available within our platform. And so oftentimes you'll see these kinds of conversations between brokers and carriers maybe happening with like a carrier rep. It's a very ad hoc kind of conversation about like, hey, why did we lose this business? And the broker's kind of like just trying to get them to go away or give them something that'll feed them just in that moment, but isn't overly helpful or is not something that's ultimately going to get bubbled up to like an executive level where they can make strategic decisions. This is where we can use a lot of the data insights we have within our platform to then turn that conversation into like a data-driven conversation. So instead of saying, oh, it feels like we're not getting invited to a lot of your RFPs that are going out, they can sit down together and look at it and say, oh, well, you're getting invited to 45% of these opportunities. You know, can we talk about what we can do to increase that up to 50, 60, 80%, something like that.
Mhm.
So that can really help out in those types of conversations. And so we're there to help facilitate it. ultimately it's those relationships that need to exist there to be able to manage and handle all of that's going on. So it seems like, across both of those, there's nothing that are like really huge, big asks that are needed between the two teams, but it's amazing how so much of that boils down to automated workflows and just the data flow that needs to happen to be able to help out build and maybe even repair some of those relationships that are occurring between carriers and brokers.
I love that. So many good nuggets of insight there in that response, and I won't be able to touch on all of them. But one of the themes that I'm hearing that I just love is kind of leveraging this technology to actually connect people and to strengthen these relationships rather than to put a wall up in between all of the stakeholders that are involved. And whether that's a wall between the broker and the carrier or the employer level, I think these integrated systems, these connected workflows can help with the fundamentals, like you mentioned, just a policy number, and then everything to providing better transparency to the stakeholders involved, and increasing
Yeah.
just speed, increasing
Yeah.
speed and the amount of value that can be created through these
And I
relationships.
have to imagine you're seeing the same things with the brokers that are using your system, right? It's like there's just data that has to get in and like who's going to do that or where's it going to come from or what's going to happen next and everything. So, yeah,
Absolutely, there's data that needs to get in, and that data already lives in other places. And
yeah,
so, if we're
somewhere.
getting to, with all of the amazing advancements in our space and just in technology in general, it seems behind the times to make people actually manually type things in, and to have a system that kind of sits really in a vacuum when it needs to be connected and touching these other platforms, these other tools that are in the same flow of work. So absolutely, killer insights, and just absolutely enjoyed kind of how deep you went on the carrier side as well, and how that kind of ties back to the broker partners that they're working with.
Right.
Well, let's move on to a little bit of a fun and unique question. I'm really excited to throw this one for Nick. I just have a feeling that you're going to have a cool answer. So let's get straight to it. If you could see one event from history in person, what would it be?
Yeah. So, and also thanks for putting all the pressure on me, Spencer, in terms of coming up with something unique or interesting. So here I am. I'm going to attempt to deliver the best that I can for you. So I love this question because there's like multiple ways that you can go with this and decide on what you're going to land on. So, like as a Christian, I would love to go back and be able to see like Jesus's events and ministries and miracles that took place back, 2000 years ago. Or it'd be amazing to go and like solve some kind of like historical mystery. Like, how did the Egyptians actually build those pyramids? Or like what really happened with like JFK or, something like that. Ultimately, what I landed on was like, what's going to provide me the best viewing experience for going back in time and seeing this. And this is where I had to eliminate something like seeing the Wright brothers like have their first flight. That was like, it was like a 12-second flight on this like little, like mechanized glider kind of thing.
Might
Like
be
I
a
think
little.
in my current context, like I'd be like sitting there all day and seeing like 12 seconds go by and go, wow, that, maybe it was a little anticlimactic. No offense to the Wright brothers. But so here's what I landed on. My favorite movie is Master and Commander with Russell Crowe. He's this like British naval captain guiding a ship like over the ocean on an epic adventure and just being solely powered off of sails on a wooden ship going around the world. Like amazing adventure. What I would love to see is the most epic naval battle that occurred during that time period. And this took place in October 1805. It's called the Battle of Trafalgar, and it's
Mm,
famous in British history and British naval history for Admiral Lord Nelson commanded their fleet to an amazing victory over the kind of Spanish-French combined fleet that occurred there off the coast of Spain. So if you go to London, there's the Trafalgar Square there. Nelson has a big monument up at the top that memorializes his kind of epic victory that he had there. And I think it would be an amazing sight to see this armada of ships going at each other, the strategy, the action, epic adventure, the bravery, the leadership that's displayed. I think it would be, it'd be a day that would be epic to see and witness in person. So there's my answer. Did I live up to your high expectations?
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. I think, yes, that the day would be epic, almost as epic as the delivery. I just love the depth and the color. Clearly you thought,
Well, I couldn't take it like a simple, and I wasn't gonna
no,
go
yeah, that
simple.
was, yeah, maybe we'll have to have you on the show again and we could do, just a full show about some incredible history. I love it. All right, Nick. Well, let's go ahead and kind of bring this to a close. But before we do, for those that have made it through your epic story and all the insights shared, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you? And what's the best way for someone to learn more about ThreeFlow?
Yeah, for sure. No, so we have ThreeFlow's website that you can search. You can easily book a demo or get in contact with us through there. I'd love to talk with anybody directly. So my email address is just nickcarlson@threeflow.com. And also, I'm available on LinkedIn. So reach out, connect, send a message, and would love to connect up and talk about anything insurance, technology, or obscure history events are always open in my messages. So love it. Thanks, Spencer. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. For everyone, that's a wrap on this Bright Bite. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll see you next time.